but it is very important work that we have to do here. So let's get going. We'll hopefully not take up too much of your time today. We ready with the slideshow? Let's move to our next slide. All right, so here is our agenda. We're going to start off with our State of the Mission address with our Mission Council Chair, Stephanie Entz. And Stephanie, if you would like to come on up and share with us. Actually, let me read the bylaws. In our bylaws, the duties of the chair of our Mission Council include providing a mission update at the annual congregational meeting, which shall include both a progress report of last year's work and priorities for the coming year. So with that, I'll invite Stephanie up.
Thank you. Good morning. So as chairperson of the Mission Council, I'd like to share some of the many ways that members of our church brought our mission statement to life over the past year, along with a sneak preview of some plans for the upcoming year. Our mission, rooted in God's radical love, compels us to embrace three foundational pillars: to build a welcoming church, a just community, and a sustainable world. These pillars are not merely aspirations, but commitments that shape our collective identity and purpose. The first pillar is to create a welcoming church. The deacons and elders of our church are instrumental in creating a welcoming and inclusive atmosphere for visitors and members. Our deacons are present in the narthex to warmly welcome each visitor and member as they arrive on Sunday morning. They provide a visitor's first connection with our church, which is so important. Our pastors follow up with any visitors who provide contact information. Our elders work behind the scenes to make sure our members stay connected with and feel valued by our church family by sending handwritten notes, emails, and even texts throughout the year. This year, the elders also made it a priority to make members feel included in the worship service by inviting individuals to read the scripture, provide opening or offertory prayers, or deliver a personal story during a moment of mission. Our music and performing arts ministries have been very active over the last year to create a welcoming atmosphere inside and outside of the sanctuary. They have expanded their musical offerings during church with the formation of the Downey worship team, who play twice a month. The trio of piano, guitar, and drums bring a contemporary and upbeat style to our worship. The chancel choir continues to grow and is a consistent part of our worship, providing traditional and contemporary musical offerings. Our pool of guest vocalists and instrumentalists, including a harpist, flautist, and brass quintet, perform on a monthly basis. Airmail, our all-male vocal ensemble, performs during worship and has also visited local retirement villages to provide entertainment for our elderly neighbors. Outside of worship, members of the choir, the Downey worship team, and the congregation have performed at local venues and events, including the Benton House, Irving Circle Park, Irvington's Farmers Market, First Fridays, and the traditional Christmas caroling. They have also revived the concerts in the courtyard this summer, a tradition started several years ago by past member Anthony Lineberry. These free concerts are open to the public and feature local and regional talent. The current state of children and youth ministry is also vibrant and blooming and is doing a great job of making young people of every age feel welcomed and valued here at Downey. To note, we welcome new life into the congregation with the Beswick, Friedley, Butler, Mann, and now the Marks families. And we celebrated our 2 high school graduates this spring, Ruby Spickelmeyer and Oliver Bindewald, as they moved on from the youth program to new adventures. Last fall, we began a children and family ministry called Downey Families Fellowship Group. The goal of this ministry was to strengthen the bonds of young families in our congregation. On the 4th Thursday of the month, families at Downey with elementary-aged children or younger are invited to come together for a shared meal and fellowship. The church provides nursery staff, which allows parents time to check in with each other, participate in planned conversation topics, play games, and listen to special guest speakers. This has quickly become a beloved time of ministry here at Downey, and we look forward to launching its second year on August 22nd, when we'll kick off Downey's participation in a brand new regional program of faith formation for children and parents called Quest, a Journey of Formation. Our Worship and Wonder program has moved to a larger space and is now led by a dedicated person whose skills and talents with our youngest members is a blessing beyond measure. The youth group meet the second Sunday of each month with activities ranging from fellowship and conversation to service projects and outings in the community. This summer, we sent 3 youth members to summer camp, which all of them thoroughly enjoyed. This was the first summer in quite some time where we had youth participants. The regional camping program is such a blessing, and our youth represented us so well. We also featured youth as special music participants in worship. Sandy Hawk led a series for children where they sang together after worship on a number of Sundays, and we held our annual Christmas pageant last Advent, coordinated by the most talented Brady Mayo. Throughout the year, we participate in and host several events and celebrations that bring us together as a congregation, but also connect us to the Irvington community. In September, we hosted the annual hog roast thanks to the efforts of many volunteers who cooked food, roasted the pork from midnight to 6 a.m., set up tents, tables, chairs, served the food, collected money, provided the entertainment, and supervised the bouncy house. In October, members of the congregation staffed the Downey tent at the Irvington Halloween Festival and greeted the many families who came to play games and win prizes. In December, we held our popular Advent Arts and Crafts Workshop in Century Hall, where members of the congregation, with friends and family, provide supplies and instruction on creating wonderful holiday gifts and treasures. In the winter, we once again hosted the Community Euchre Tournament, where over 70 people spent the evening moving from table to table to play cards, visit old friends, and meet new ones. In April, we partnered with the Downey Co-op Preschool to host the annual Community Easter Pancake Breakfast and Easter Egg Hunt. Mark your calendars for the first weekend in December. Plans are already underway for the revival of the Downey Madrigal Feast and Concert. This will be a catered, community-wide event with entertainment provided by singers and instrumentalists, including members of the Crispus Attucks High School Orchestra, jugglers, unicyclists, and much more. Our second pillar is to create a just community. Our social justice ministry had their biggest event last fall when they partnered with the Irvington Presbyterian Church and 4 other area churches to host the first annual Irvington Wellness Fair, which kicked off the Halloween Festival. The fair provided free health screenings, vaccinations, health information, and giveaways for the community. This year, our social justice ministry organized a visit to the Eiteljorg Museum to learn about the rich history and the current reality of Indiana's Native American population. They shared information on bills promoting or hindering equity in Indiana, along with instructions on how to contact your legislator. They communicated information on how to participate in events advocating for livable wages, voting rights, and other social justice issues. And they recently supported a book study of the book, Poverty by America, organized by the Irvington Presbyterian Church at the Irvington branch of the library. Learning about social injustice is essential for building a more just and inclusive society. It empowers individuals to become agents of positive change. The Irvington Community Advocacy Network, or ICANN Food Pantry, is run out of our church every Thursday. They address immediate hunger needs and promote food security. In 2023, the pantry served over 1,500 families. Community outreach is ongoing through the pantry's support of the Neighborhood Free Food Boxes and the Neighborhood Food Collective giveaways each summer. We should keep in mind that the ICANN network offers other support services, including financial assistance and a clothing closet, which our social justice ministry helped us stock this past winter with warm clothing for our pantry visitors. Our May Ward Women's Group partnered with the Downey Youth in the ICANN Food Pantry to prepare 100 blessing bags for unhoused individuals in our community. Members of the May Ward Group also supplied snacks for the Irvington Wellness Fair and have assisted the Exodus Group and our social justice ministry and supporting the Abdobari family. In the coming year, they look forward to providing help and care for a new large family who just arrived from the Congo. To publicly display our vision of a world where all people are treated with dignity and respect, we unveiled 2 anti-Christian nationalist banners last November, which were hung on the front of our building. And in June, Downey was well represented by youth and adults alike at the Pride Parade in downtown Indianapolis. Our third pillar is to create a sustainable world. Our Creation Care Ministry has a small but dedicated group who have represented our church at regular meetings of the Eastside Creation Care Network, Eco America, and Faith in Place, all organizations focused on environmental sustainability. Members also participated in Renewable Energy Day at the State House, Indy Creation Fest, and Earth Day Indiana. We recognize the urgency of addressing environmental degradation and climate change. Part of being a Green Chalice congregation includes working to make changes that will promote ecological responsibility and better care for God's creation. This year, we stopped using disposable cups for our coffee bar and encourage members to use their own mugs or the church's ceramic mugs to decrease waste. The food pantry transitioned to using recyclable, reusable grocery bags for distribution of food supplies. Visitors now bring their pantry-provided bags for food pickup, eliminating the use of wasteful, disposable plastic bags. We also serve as an outlet for a community-supported agriculture group who distributes their produce from Century Hall every week. In return, the CSA offers a portion of produce which is shared with the congregation or with the food pantry. As we look for ways to be involved in publicly speaking and individually working to protect the environment, we also acknowledge that we must care for the long-term health and well-being of ourselves and our building. If we do not care for our minds and bodies, or if we ignore the needs of our church facility, we soon lose the vital support and energy for our global environmental efforts. To maintain our facility, we have made commitments to repair the roof and replace the air conditioning compressor in the education wing. We replaced our old, inefficient freezer refrigerator with a donated, newer, more efficient model. Our lighting, light switches, and thermostats are updated and energy efficient. All of these changes will provide a healthy, welcoming, comfortable, and more energy efficient environment within our building. Finally, the new Downey Academy has offered several opportunities to support the emotional, spiritual, and physical health of our members. From prayer meditations to book discussions, from hiking and creating arts and crafts to worshipful yoga, we have sought to feed the spirit and care for the body. And what's next? As we assess our progress and chart our course forward, let us celebrate the ways in which God's radical love has transformed us individually and collectively. Let us acknowledge the challenges that lie ahead and recommit ourselves to the work of building a welcoming church, a just community, and a sustainable world. In the coming months, the elders will continue the process of revising how we express our church's vision statement. They have been gathering information from the congregation and are ready to construct a new, more succinct statement of just who we are, who we hope to be, and how we will continue to make our mission a visible and tangible reality. The state of our mission is not fixed. We are always looking for ways to move our mission forward and to make it more vital and vibrant. This is a chance for each of us to ask ourselves, how can I help Downey to live out its mission more fully? Thank you for your dedication, your passion, and your unwavering commitment to our mission.
Thank you, Stephanie. I should have introduced myself. My name is Cassandra Crutchfield, and I am finishing my second year as Administrative Council Chair. And public speaking is not my favorite thing, so. Okay, next on our, before we move on to the next item on our agenda, Pastor Melody has sent a message that she wanted me to share with you all, so I will read that now. Dear Downey, greetings from the Emerald Isle Isle of Ireland. Brody, Bellamy, and I are currently in Dublin, wrapping up our final season of Renewal Adventure. What a gift this time has been, and I'm ready to be back with you all very soon. Today is an important day for Downey, as the congregational meeting calls all of us to make important decisions, not just for the future of our church, but for our present needs. I confess it feels odd not to be with you all on such an important day, but I'm completely confident in our wonderful lay leaders who will lead us forward, and in Pastor Adam, who has led Downey with great wisdom during this season of renewal. My prayer for you all today is that your hearts and minds will be open to the nudges and whispers from the Holy Spirit, wherever they might lead you in your considerations. May God be blessed, not only with our worship today, but also with the leadership and financial decisions being made in the meeting, for it too is holy and sacred work. Thank you for being a part of what makes Downey so special, and thank you for participating in the fullness of the church. Much, much love, Pastor Melody. Okay, we're moving on to our second part of the agenda, the Congregational Leadership Slate for 2024 to 26. Next slide. Okay, we will meet our officers, our new officers. First one is Savannah Streefer for our Administrative Council Chair. Next, we have Carrie Boffman as our Recording Secretary. Next, we have Stephen Enns and Sarah Jones as our new trustees. And so our first proposed officer position slate for the Administrative Council Chair, we have Savannah Streever, Recording Secretary, Carrie Boffman, trustees, Stephen Enns and Sarah Jones. And we have our continuing officers who are going for year 2, Stephanie Enns, our Mission Council Chair that you just heard from, Donna Marks, our Treasurer, and Don Rouse and Karen Whitehurst, our trustees. Next, we have our proposed deacon slate. Maggie McBride, Mika Baird, Michelle Butler, Brady Mayo, and Josh Harris. Our continuing deacons for year 2 are Sandy Hawk, Matt Nowlin, Kathy Peach, Isis Copeland, and Dennis Slaughter. Moving on to our elders. Our proposed elder slate are Kate Bindewald, Cassandra Crutchfield, Kirk Friedley, Martha Fowler, Tom Mann, Rob Bindewald, Toma Baston is agreed to stay on for an additional year because we were short, Mary Jo Moss, and Linda Glover. Our continuing elders will be Steve Boffman, Jack Rutledge, and Eric Steele. All right, our next slide shows all of our proposed leadership for 2024-26. I would like to ask for a motion to approve this leadership slate as presented, and this slate has already been approved by the Administrative Council to share with you. Would anyone like to motion? Great. Can I get a second? I'll second that. Great. Thank you very much. For voting, if in person, I'm going to ask for a vote just to show your hand, raise your hand. Online, please take the next 30 seconds to share your vote by typing yes, no, or abstain into the chat box. So all those in favor of the proposed leadership slate, raise your hand. Any opposed? Raise your hand. Great. All right, and we will have Kate Bindewald. Yes, Susan. An exact count Okay. Everybody raise your hands again. Great, thank you, everybody. And I'm assuming we have Kate, majority good? Yep. All right, so if we have a quorum, we discussed this earlier, which is 25% of our current membership, which we will have to figure the numbers later, then yay, we have a new leadership slate. All right, next on our agenda is our budget. This is the fun one, guys. Before we start talking about numbers, I would like to invite Don Rouse, who is our legacy trustee, up to talk about the covenantal relationship between Downey and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Get a hand for Don Rouse.
I was asked to speak this morning on some of the history of this particular church and our relationship with the Disciples of Christ. For those of you who don't know me, I am Don Rouse. I was born into this congregation over 60 years ago. I am third generation here, and I am fifth generation disciple. My immediate family started here about 100 years ago. So we've been here a long time, and I've had family members who were charter members of the church from 1875. Unlike many other denominations, Disciple of Christ churches are wholly independent. Those of us who are members of this church home own this church campus. The title for our church building and property is not held by a regional or national office or international entity, but sits safely in a steel vault inside this building. This home is no different from the home many of us live in. And like the home you live in, this building requires maintenance, and it requires upkeep. As owners of this campus, it is our responsibility to make sure that it is maintained. And much like our own personal household accounts and budgets, there is a business of the church that must be attended to. There are staff salaries to be paid, programs to be funded, grass that needs to be cut, and windows that need to be washed. And as member of this church home, it is our responsibility to take care of that business. Unlike many other denominations, it is not dictated to us what our personal giving should be. 10% tithing is always a goal, but never mandatory. We don't sell memberships as some churches do. And the regional and national offices don't dictate what we give to Disciples Mission Fund. It is solely at our discretion as a democratic church body what our giving will be to the greater church. Historically, our giving has been between 10 and 50% over the years because it was always important to this church family to fund the work of God's church in the world. We are part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ by covenant and by choice. Disciples of Christ have always believed, that there was no creed but Christ, no book but the Bible, and that Scripture should be left to the individual to interpret. Disciples are great believers in Christian unity, and doctrine and creed should never take forefront over the following of Christ's teachings and should never separate Christians. That is why 149 years ago, the lay membership of this church chose to organize and be a part of the Disciples movement. In December of 1875, our charter was signed and the life of this congregation began. We were known as the First Church of Christ of Irvington, and then as First Christian Church of Irvington, and for about the last 100 years, Downey Avenue Christian Church, disciples of Christ. In 1880, the lay membership decided we had worshiped long enough at Butler College and we needed our own church home. They started a building fund and put together a committee to search for the appropriate location. 15 years later, in 1895, they consecrated the red brick church that once sat on this site. In 1946, after the Second World War, the lay membership of the church outgrew the red brick church, and they embarked upon another building fund that included a mortgage and a commitment from every individual member of the church family. 7 years later, the cornerstone to our current building was laid. It was the same in 1962 when the educational wing was built, and it was the same in 1975 when Century Hall was built. Members of the church family gave up vacations, new cars, new furniture, and in some instances that I know of personally, new shoes in order for this church to be built. They planned long-term strategies to accomplish their goals, and they tactically planned their actions, ensuring they were moving forward to the end goal. And here we are today, almost 150 years later. Today we are holding a very important meeting. It gives each member of Downey an opportunity to ask of its elected leaders the hard questions regarding budget, mission, and what leadership roles will be in the upcoming year. It is the time for the membership to say yes to what the administrative board is proposing, or decline it and ask for other options. As with the past lay members, it is with your power and your right to vote for what you think best suits the needs of Downey Avenue and fulfill God's mission for us. As co-owners, it is your responsibility to make an informed decision, so ask your questions as we go through this process. In January, we will begin celebrations for our 150th year. Let's make good choices today, so in 50 years' time, the beacon that has been Downey Avenue Christian Church will still shine around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. All right, next slide, please. This year, our stewardship committee included Skip Alexander, who was our chair, Jack Rutledge, Laura Gellarden, Savannah Strever, and Ton Spickelmeyer. Can we please give them a round of hand for their hard work? Next slide. Here are just a couple of statistics from our stewardship journey. We had 53 total pledges. 23 of those pledges increased the amount they pledged from last year, and we had 6 first-time pledgers. Thank you all for your generosity. All right, moving on to the proposed budget for 2024-25 year. We're going to start off looking at our income. This is income from our offerings. Our pledged commitments are going to add up to $173,345. Non-pledged giving is $22,360. And we came up with this number by looking at those in the congregation that have given in the past and are still here but have not pledged. And we just kind of added that up into that category. And then we have other offerings for $1,800 for a total of $197,505. Next, we have income from our dedicated funds. Our building fund, we had a balance of $4,999, and we're going to use $4,500 of that. Our COVID relief fund, we're going to use $1,322 from that, which will deplete that fund. Our Faith Development and Nurture Fund will be $1,500, which from a balance of $1,518 will almost deplete that fund. And our youth fund will be $300. The youth fund is used towards camp to help our kiddos go to camp, for a total of $7,622. Next, we have income from endowments and bequests. Our bequest interest is $2,458. Our Dillon endowment draw is $3,607. Designated memorial gifts, $2,600. And DACC endowment draw of $23,930, for a total of $32,595. I know this is really exciting stuff. Income from other sources. We have our rent, which is $4,607, and that is mostly from our cooperative preschool that pays rent here. We have our refunds and rebates is $3,556. Some of that is included VANCO fees that our congregants agree to cover when they donate online. Fundraisers and miscellaneous, $2,350, and for a total of $10,513. So next we have our total income. Offerings, $197,505. Dedicated funds, $7,622. Endowments and bequests, $32,595. And other sources, $10,513, for a total of $248,235 of income. Now we'll move on to our expenses. For personnel and staff support, our salaries and wages this year will be $178,066. This is quite a bit higher because we had a goal of paying our pastors and employees a fair and livable wage, as we discussed during our stewardship campaign. Payroll taxes are $3,890, which we have changed our payroll services, so this number is actually lower this year. Pensions, $17,810. Payroll service, $1,095. Healthcare benefits, professional support, $4,800, for a total of $208,661. All right, our expenses for administrative overhead, general. We have insurance, $12,053. Supplies and equipment, $6,266. Financial management, $8,309. VANCO fees, $2,266. This includes a monthly service fee from VANCO and any transaction fees that are not covered by congregants. Ministerial administrative expenses, $2,063, and miscellaneous for $200. Total, $31,157. Next, we have expenses for the administrative overhead facility. Our utilities, $18,247. Security, $1,086. Building maintenance supplies, $1,548. Maintenance services, $2,114. Building repairs, $10,000. That's a big number because we have a lot going on in our aging church right now. Yards and sidewalks, $1,600, for a total of $34,827. Our expenses for worship and faith formation. We have worship supplies, $947. Music expenses, $8,488. We have increased the budget this year for our special music, which includes our worship trio that you enjoyed earlier in the service. Curriculum purchases, $250. Youth ministry, $1,490. Children and family life, $1,250. Fellowship membership, $1,253, and other for $275. Total, $13,953. Moving on to our expenses for mission and outreach. Ministers discretion fund, $1,322. Outreach grants, $3,000. Other ministries, $820. And disciples mission fund, $6,400. Disciples fund is a 3%, we give 3% from all of our offerings for that. Total of $11,542. Our total expenses, we have personnel and staff, $208,661. Admin overhead general, $31,157. Admin overhead facilities, $34,827. Worship and faith formation, $13,953. Mission and outreach, $11,542, for a total of $300,140. So in summary, our income for the 2024-25 year will be $248,235. Our expenses will be $300,140. So as you can see, we're going to have a shortfall of $51,905. So the Administrative Council has approved this budget, and we are asking with the motion to approve the 2024-25 budget. We're asking the congregation, the Administrative Council is asking the congregation to approve the budget with the shortfall, along with the commitment that the council and the congregation will work together to mitigate the shortfall during the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. The Administrative Council is also asking for authorization to use the funds from the endowment and/or capital campaign to cover any remaining shortfall. Now, Robert's Rules requires that I ask for a motion and for a second, and then we open it up the floor to discussion from the congregation. So I will at this time ask for a motion. Would anyone? Ben, thank you. Would anyone like to second? Skip, thank you. All right, before I open up the floor to discussion, I would like to invite Donna Marks up, who is our treasurer, to talk about Downey's historical financial data. This will just give us an overall picture and more information to help us make our decision.
Good morning. In my experience, and to my knowledge, this is the first time Downey has asked the congregation to consider a budget that has a shortfall. There may be some of you who have been here longer than I, and maybe in the distant past that has happened, but since I have been here, it has not, and I've been here a pretty long time. So this is something new. So the challenge that this presents to us for the coming year is actually twofold. First, we are asked to step into the new year with faith and confidence, knowing that we need to bring our income in line with our spending. There's no other option. This means that we will be asked to examine our individual contributions of time, talents, and treasure. It means using our collective efforts to spend frugally and to be creative about income generation, still with the understanding that we may need to use more than a desirable amount of our precious investment resources. In particular, it means that we are asking ourselves to double down on our commitment to support our dedicated and amazing staff, pastoral staff, and lay staff by providing them with a fair and livable compensation. And in fact, it's this last thing that we are asked that will exactly, the support of our staff that will best position us to face our second challenge for the coming year. Our second challenge will be to begin the process of moving Downey forward to structure itself to both align with our mission and vision, and also to be financially sustainable. Leadership from that staff that we are supporting will be essential to that process of discerning how to move forward. So what I'd like to do this morning is to share some historical financial information that will provide you with a better perspective of our current financial position. So, I think you're going to go a couple slides forward. Yes. The first slide is a picture of our budgets and our pledged offerings over the past 10 years. So, first column is the years, second column lists the budgets, third column are the pledged offerings, and the last column then is a percentage of the budget that is covered by our pledged offerings. So keep in mind that these figures are not actual figures. These are the figures that we approached each year with, that this was our budget and these were the pledges that we got to support that budget. So generally, you can see that our budget increased every year, which is probably expected. The increases or the changes from year to year were mostly affected by staffing changes and also COVID. So as you look down the list, you'll see, down the chart, you'll see that in 2017 and 18, we went through a staffing change, and there was some significant increase in our budget. Later on, in 2020-21 era, there was a slight dip in our budget. And if you all recall, that was when COVID hit. And also, we went through another staffing change. So you will see that in the 2021 timeframe, where the budget dips slightly. The proposed budget that we have for 2024-25 is bringing us essentially back up to a little bit more than the pre-COVID era in terms of our budget amount, but 6 years later, 5 years later. I guess it would be 5 years later. In terms of the pledged offerings and the percentage of the budget that those pledged offerings cover, you will see that there is a trend that we have continually reduced the amount of our budget that is covered by pledges. And the reason for that are probably variables, a lot of variables. One thing is that our pledges stayed rather consistent, at least for the first half of that 10-year period, but our budget increased, so the percentages went down slightly. I don't have membership numbers on this chart in terms of the years, but that could also be a factor, the number of members that were involved in the church and pledging. Certainly, we do know that in the recent past, or during this period in general, we have lost a number of long-term members who were traditionally pledging large contributions, giving large contributions. So that also affects the percentages. So, what income streams picked up the difference? This next slide is going to answer that somewhat. And this is an analysis of the Downey Endowment Fund, which is invested through the Christian Church Foundation. And this chart covers the entire period during which that fund has existed, 30 years. So it was established in 1995, and it started with a $50,000 deposit, essentially. It was about $50,000. There have been gifts that have been added over the years for a total principal in that account of $375,794. That principal amount is to remain intact and not be spent by the church in order for the fund to generate investment income for Downey for its lifetime. The second column talks about withdrawals from that account. You will see that first row is for the first 20 years of the endowment. We drew the $114,000 $14,669. At the end of that period, you can see the value of the endowment in that last column. In 2016, we didn't draw any money. And if you recall, on the previous chart, it said that 92% of our budget was covered by pledges. So we did not draw any money that year. But starting in 2017, we did begin to withdraw more money to support the operational budget here at Downey. Typically, that draw has been 5% of the average balance of the last 12 quarters. That's how it's been calculated. So the rule of thumb is that the market does better than 5% over time, so we use the 12 quarters as our benchmark and apply the 5% to the balance. So you will see starting in 2017 that we began making those draws, and the figures in black, the 20,346, et cetera, are the 5% figures. However, there have been years where we have withdrawn more than the 5% rule, and those are shown in green. I just want to point out that the 2018-19 is an 18-month period where we switched from a fiscal or a calendar year to a program year, so that was 2 draws included in that $63,120. So there have been times when we have taken more than the 5%. And that's not sustainable. The 5% is supposedly sustainable because the market will generate at least that much over time. So the third column in the chart shows the value of our endowment at the end of each one of those time periods. It has continually increased, with one exception, which is shown in red. In 2021-22, in the market downturn, we lost $100,000 essentially in our fund, which is quite, you might remember that personally, that time period for your personal finances. That's quite a bit to lose. So just to go back and point out, I mentioned the black numbers in column 2, the purple numbers at the bottom for this year and next year, those have not been taken yet. So the figures that show up in the endowment value do not account for those funds being withdrawn yet. So at the bottom of the chart, you will see that over time, we have taken out $307,536. That doesn't include the purple numbers, okay? Over time, the fund has had an added value of $423,213. So we have taken out, that's above and beyond the principal. So that is how much has been value added to the fund, and we've taken out $307,536. So that leaves a little better than $100,000 at its current, fund value that we could use. But again, we will be taking this, by the end of this month, the $23,930 for 2023-24 will be taken out. So that gives you an idea of where that fund stands. Next slide. I hope I don't take any of your papers with me, Cassandra. Okay, so the second challenge that I talked about earlier is considering next year's budget and looking forward to financial sustainability in future years. And so these are just some things that we need to consider as we move in that direction. So in order to increase income, basically pledges would need to increase, or gifts, individual gifts would need to increase, and growing of the congregation and inviting people in to be a part of and spread to more people responsibility for supporting our mission. The second item is the endowment draw. The 5% 5% withdrawal is sustainable if the market does what it's supposed to do, but we need to look at ways not to have to take out more than that, because that is not sustainable. And also, additional contributions to the endowment fund will build that base on which interest can be earned and income can be taken. Dedicated funds, over the years we've had a number of dedicated funds, and those were established by memorial gifts, and also the congregational members would frequently make regular contributions to those dedicated funds, like the building fund, the music fund, the youth fund. There's a number of those. So dedicated funds is another source of income, but again, that needs to come from memorial giving and other resources. And the last item up there says other income sources. And so what I'm really talking about there are income beyond our membership. These other income sources are really from our membership, but we need to think about income that we might generate outside of our own pockets, basically. And that could be grants, it could be rental income. We have a wonderful facility here, and we can perhaps think of ways to use it to generate income and not just be an expense that we have to support. And also community fundraisers that support our community, things that our community needs that we can offer that would generate income. So those are just some ideas for us to consider, and information that you can consider as you vote today on this proposed budget. Thank you. Oh, I did want to say something. I wanted to take a moment for a personal privilege to share a joy that I didn't share in worship, and that is that Craig and I had our first grandchild on Thursday. His name is August Jack Hinkle, and he's very sweet.
Thank you, Donna. It's great to have someone who understands the financial aspects of the church. All right, so now we're going to open it up to any comments, any discussion, any questions that you all might have about our budget for this coming year. We got a microphone if anyone wants to raise their hand. Anybody online? Kate, you can let us know if there's anyone who has questions online.
So there's a line in the motion about working together to mitigate the shortfall. Are there concrete first and second steps towards that have already been laid out?
No, there are not.
Okay.
That is something that the administrative council chair wants to work in creating ideas, like the ones that Donna just said, ways to find money outside of our congregation, find different people to rent our building, and grants, things like that. But we don't have anything set in stone yet.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you and the incoming admin council chair will welcome suggestions from the congregation.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
These are just quick off-the-cuff thoughts. I haven't seen this budget previously, just so that you know where my thoughts are. Gives me a lot of pause, as I'm sure it does a lot of other people in the room, to approve a budget that is above our expected income. Those of you may or may not know my career is in fundraising. So I've spent about 15 years working in nonprofits. And I've had experience where the operations team gives us the number that they need us to fundraise, and I've had situations where we, the fundraising team, tells the operations team what we can fundraise and what they have to spend. It always works better that way. I have never had an operations team give me a budget that we have met as a fundraising team. It comes from the fundraising side to know what you can spend, and you give that to the expense team, and they plan their budget around that. So from my experience as a fundraiser, that's what I would prefer that we operate under as a church. However, I really see a lot of value in the budget that has been proposed this year, especially from the sense, I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling surprised by these numbers. And I think maybe as a church, we have had our head in the sand a little bit, trying to ignore the fact that this is our financial reality. And I think we owe it to ourselves to give ourselves a year to try to stare these numbers in the face and really, really, really try to find a solution. So this is my long-winded way of saying that as of this moment, I personally am leaning towards approving the budget for the year so that we can wrestle with these numbers and really try to figure out a plan. But I don't think I would approve this type of budget a year from now or 2 years from now. I don't want this to become our normal. I don't want this to feel like, I don't want it to become the norm and we slowly chip away at our endowment until it's gone. So those are just sort of my off-the-cuff thoughts.
Good thoughts from our new administrative council chair.
I'll add just a few words to what Savannah has said. I want to say thank you to the administrative team that put the budget together. I commend the increase given to our staff. I think that that's critical at this time. I think that it's very important that we show our appreciation to them and allow them to live, a good, healthy and bountiful life. I want to say a word of thanks to the stewardship team for the work that they did during the past, say, 6 months or so. I think that they did a very good job of letting us know the opportunities that we're presented with. But they did not know, and I think maybe we as a congregation did not know exactly what the level of giving maybe needed to be in order to meet the budget. There is very little fat in that budget. There's, as we looked at those numbers, I don't think that there's anything that I would say we could cut.
Right.
In fact, there are places where we need to increase. Our outreach needs to grow. Our investment in this facility needs to grow. Our maintenance and our building fund and capital funds, those need to grow. And so I think that we are faced with a big opportunity and a big challenge, which we must meet. What do we have? 52 giving units and $51,000 shortfall. So, if we could average $1,000 more per giving unit, we'd have it met, right? Now, that may be one simple math problem and one way to meet that challenge. But I think that we each need to look for ways that we can give just a little bit more, again, toward outreach, whether that's to the Disciples Mission Fund, which I think is critical. One of the things that Don mentioned is that over the course of the years, an average or a benchmark that I remember hearing as a kid anyway, was we would give 10 to 15% to the missions building, right? To the general church. And I think we should strive to continue that. We don't have to, but we should, I think that that's a great goal to continue that part of our history. So those are just some thoughts. We have a challenge ahead of us. This $50,000 is a lot of money, right? But I also would put my trust in the lay leadership and the ordained leadership of our congregation, that in the next 6 months that we would find ways to meet this challenge.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Dennis Slaughter. I decided to sit in the back row as usual. I just want to say our idea about sustainability is not for us to do a little recycling or fix a leak when we have it in the roof. It's got to come centrally from our hearts to say this church and its mission have mattered for 150 years. Are we going to be serious about it that this church and its mission will matter for another 50 or 100 beyond that? And that means not just dealing with short budget cycles, which come up too quickly, but to say how we give our time and talents, we know all that, and treasure. So I'm going to say that is sustainability. It's being a place where people can know God's love, and it does have a roof, and it has doors and windows and energy that leaks out and all the rest. So I don't want to just say this is a business activity that we're doing. We really want to say, are we committed? In years past, we wouldn't have thought that much about it. But if I saw the estimate for utility use, all those prices will go up. As hard as we work to conserve, all of those costs will keep going up. We have to be dedicated about bringing down our usage, our carbon footprint, and all the rest. Over the last couple of years, I've brought several ideas to people in the congregation in kind of a scattered shot way of things I learn about, but I can't do on my own. When those opportunities come up, and they will come up, for houses of faith to take advantage of grants, even from the federal government as it filters down, we got to have a team that can spring into action quickly and focused, because we're not talking $5,000 and $10,000. We can be talking up to $100,000 of energy savings. And compare that to our $14,000 for energy, our utilities together. There's even incentives out there that we should be looking at, and have a team, have some identified people with access to the numbers and that have the time and commitment to say, there's a grant opportunity and it's a competitive opportunity. It won't just float in because we like it. Somebody's going to have to find the time to really work that through. So we're in a better position. A number of programs that have come through in the last, since 2021, I won't go elaborate on that, but have looked at the seriousness of our climate issues as a country. And houses and communities of faith have been eligible for the first time. I can't just be aware of that. We all need to jump on those opportunities and follow them through, because we may have to do cost sharing. We may have to have numbers ready and in hand about what it would cost, let's say, to insulate where we have no insulation at all, to still do with energy management and usage of our building. So I'm going to say it's a hopeful time compared to a few years ago, but it's a time when we're going to have to seize those opportunities and act on them outside the budgets, but be prepared going forward to say we can pull a team together and go after that grant because, well, it's not going to be laid on our laps. And we do have the resources of our own Disciples of Christ units and others that have expertise in that area. So I'm going to say, just don't assume that we hear about it, that we're going to be able to pull it together. But that's part of, I think, part of Tom's question. Are we serious about it? Because we may have to pull it together 5 or more grant teams in this next fiscal year and put a lot of time and effort on it. But I think there's some opportunities that we've missed the last couple of years. But they may still be there in the next year or two.
Thank you, Dennis.
Hi, I'm Ben. I want to piggyback off of what Dennis has said. I've actually seen since the pandemic a lot of downfalls, a lot of shortfalls, things that have to be considered where government has to step in, something like that. And so looking at the whole picture and being a cashier at Meyer, you hear all kinds of other stuff, such as What about my mortgage? What about my food? Am I going to get started on the street? Things like that. We actually, as a body of Christ, are responsible for not just this congregation, but as the motto, as we have in our motto, you know, we are responsible for our neighborhoods. We're responsible for the area we're in. And if we don't provide services, or we don't provide the necessary tools for the people, we will have a short downfall. And I've seen it before where I've actually been part of a church where they refused to accept something like this just to get rebounded back up, and the church almost died because of the fact that other things came in and the money just ran out. And instead of trying to figure out how to build a sustainable world, it ended up becoming a nightmare where they literally had to rely on the government. They literally had to ask the city to come in and have their council meetings in the church, turn it into a government building. I've seen that happen. I've actually seen things that would amaze you where people, I used to work at also U-Haul, where people have actually complained about a lot of stuff because they were moving and they had no choice in moving. And I mean, even myself, where, you know, I got evicted out of Overton Arms for you know, health reasons. I mean, there's multiple of us that did, where they closed down that building, you know, put us out on the street where we all had to look for some place to go and some place to survive. And if we don't take advantage of the opportunities we have right now and actually, like the grants that Dennis was talking about with the federal grants and stuff, maybe pick that up, we might not survive as a church without some help somewhere. And it's sad that we have to look at it like this, where yes, it's a shortfall we got to take care of, but I consider it not a setback, but a stumbling block. You trip over your feet and you keep moving. If we look at it as a long-term downfall, it's a different story, but hopefully it just becomes like you trip over your feet and you move on. And you act like, okay, that was a bad thing. You maybe scrape your knee, but you move on. And it just, with financials, it becomes our responsibility as a body of Christ to actually be there for the people. And if we can't financially be there for the people, including our leadership, then what are we doing here? Why are we here besides just filling this building up and praising God on Sunday and then going out to the world and doing whatever? It doesn't work that way. So we've got to actually be responsible, financially, fiscally responsible as a church, to actually be the light to the world no matter what.
Thank you, Ben. Kate, do you have online?
Paula Lamy asks, are there opportunities to offer classes and workshops for the community and other means of raising funds? And she adds that she would be happy to brainstorm this. And Maggie Adams McBride commented that she has a grant writing history and would be glad to join a committee to talk about potential opportunities.
That's great news. Yes, we have talked to Bruce Barkauer, who is heading up the Generosity Plus program, and he said that there are a lot of churches in this situation, and they have had to look to outside sources for funding, using their building in different ways, or doing big fundraisers that bring in the community and not just our membership. So I think that he's going to also walk through with us this year our stewardship program and change it, so that might make a difference. So yeah, I think that we are going to look at all options and try to figure this out for something that will be sustainable in the long run. Anyone else? Comments or questions?
I have a couple quick things. One, I saw the fundraising number and initially was dismayed. I thought, oh man, that's so much work for so few dollars. But, and I, as a nonprofit leader, you know, we rely on fundraising to help make our program go in our scout troop, and we're facing the same issue. Lots of effort, not a lot of financial turnaround. But I would encourage everyone not to be too dismayed by the dollar figure, because it is also a connection to the rest of the community, and that probably is more valuable than anything else. The hog roast, you know, ties us in to our neighbors. We literally open our doors, put ourselves out there, and make ourselves available to the neighbors. And so for the budget, I know fundraising is a very small figure, but I hope no one else is too worried about that. I do have a question about the dollar figure for the building. What are some of the things that we're looking to do for the year?
Well, we just had our roof redone, which was a big expense that everybody learned about. We have our HVAC system is not doing well, and we need to, it's actually not currently working in our education wing, so that's going to be something that we need to repair quickly, because we have, of course, our pastors and our lay people who work there every day in the hot summer, and also our preschool's coming back. So that'll be a big expense as well. And I'm not sure exactly what else that is going to, but we seem to have something
Yeah,
that
something
comes
always
up
pops up, so.
frequently. And our building is old, so we need to be prepared to make those
Yeah, so
repairs.
it's my hope that we are able to extend that building use out so that we, maybe a silly thing to advertise, but be like, new air conditioning, don't
Yeah.
worry.
We have a few solar panels on the roof. Do we have figures to know the dollar amount or percentage of our monthly costs that they are helping to offset?
I do not know that. Donna, do you know that?
I know that it would be interesting to know that and to let the congregation know, because if we could occasionally have some publicity about possibility of some contributions toward additional solar panels, it would be a great contribution to the offsetting of the costs. It's an
Thank you.
investment.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay. All right, we're gonna vote now. The next slide, here's our motion to approve the budget. I'll read it through one more time. The Administrative Council is asking the congregation to approve the budget with the shortfall, along with the commitment that the council and the congregation will work together to mitigate the shortfall during the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. The Administrative Council is also asking for the authorization to use funds from the endowment and/or capital campaign to cover any remaining shortfall. So now at this time, if you are in person, we have paper ballots that are being passed out, and you can mark those ballots with your vote. If you are online, please use the next 30 seconds to type yes, no, or abstain into the chat so that we can count your vote. Oh, okay. Oh, do we have a basket? Maybe we could collect them that way. Yeah, that's great. You can fold them if you want for privacy. Susan, you want to count the votes? Where's Susan? While we're voting, I might as well take the time to thank all of our outgoing leadership who has served their 2-year terms. We really appreciate it, and we are blessed to have you part of Downey, sharing your time and your talents. Yes, please.
Okay, we have 44 approval votes with no disapprove.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right, next slide. We're going to move on to our closing prayer. One more slide. Will you pray with me? Loving God, we are grateful for the community at Downey Avenue Christian Church, where we are safe to be ourselves and bring both our greatest joys and deepest burdens. May the beginning of another year help us work together through whatever new challenges come our way, as we seek to more fully become the people you have made us to be. Empower our new leaders with your wisdom and guidance, that they may lead us boldly to bring our mission and vision to life and steward our resources with integrity and purpose. Help us each to do our part and make the community whole and draw the circle wide as we commit ourselves alongside one another to be transformed by God's radical love to build a welcoming church, a just community, and a sustainable world. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for a successful meeting. We appreciate you being here.